Hey, good morning, Choice Residential. Hope your day's off to a great start. So today I wanted to just touch on escalation clauses. Now, if you're not familiar with escalation clauses, that's essentially an addendum or a clause to a contract that says, hey, my buyer will pay $1,000 more or some fixed amount more than your next highest offer up to some maximum number. So let's say, for example, that you have a home listed for $200,000 and you receive an offer with an escalation clause in there. And that escalation clause may say, my buyer will offer $1,000 more than your next highest offer up to $210,000. Okay, so that's in essence what an escalation clause is. Now, what you need to know is that the Real Estate Commission, the North Carolina Real Estate Commission, has come out and said, we really don't like escalation clauses. They're not illegal. However, there are certain elements of an escalation clause that you're not going to be able to honor. So, for example, a typical part of an escalation clause says, we'll pay $1,000 more than the next highest offer, but you just need to send us a copy of that next highest offer. And oh, by the way, it's okay. You can black out their names or any other personal information, but you just need to send us a copy of that offer so we can verify that our contract price is $1,000 more. But of course, you can't do that. You can't share the terms of someone else's offer without that someone else's permission. And of course, that other person will never give you permission to do that because it harms them. So that's one issue with the escalation clause, the way that they're typically written. But the point that I want you to really know is that the Real Estate Commission has been very clear that they're going to have no mercy on you if there's a complaint filed or an issue that arises out of the use of an escalation clause. So our policy here is that you cannot use those with your clients. If you have a client that is just absolutely insistent on it, first of all, you need to speak with me about it and we'll talk through that. Second, an attorney, of course, would have to draft that language up. But for all intents and purposes, no escalation clauses. And here's what you do when you receive one on a listing, because it's very common. There are some well-known agents in the area that for at least a long time were trying to utilize these escalation clauses to give their clients an upper hand. And I get why it would be so appealing to a client. But here's what's happening when you make that escalation clause as part of your offer. You're putting all your cards on the table. You're telling the seller and the seller's agent really exactly how much you're willing to pay for the house. Right? Because in that fictitious example I just gave, the buyer was willing to go up to $210,000. So we know they're willing to pay $210,000. So as a listing agent, when you receive that offer, if in fact that offer with the escalation clause is the best offer that you've received, based on $210,000, then you simply reject the offer and you go back to the buyer's agent with terms that include $210,000 as the sales price, because you know that the buyer is willing to pay it, but you're just not going to allow that escalation clause to be part of the offer or part of the contract. So that way you're not obligated to provide a copy of any other offers. You're just simply going back to them and saying, hey, Mr. Buyer, Mrs. Buyer, thank you for the offer. The seller is not willing to accept an offer with an escalation clause built into it. However, they would be willing to accept an offer at $210,000 with the following terms. And 99 times out of 100, the buyer is going to agree to that because they were already willing to pay $210,000. Now, what I've seen sometimes, some errors that listing agents make is, let's say your next best offer was $205,000. So they go back to the agent and say, hey, look, I can't send you a copy of the other offer, but it was at $205. Well, first of all, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't tell them it was at $205. Or they'll go back and just kind of let the buyer's agent read between the lines. So they'll say, hey, we can't accept your offer with an escalation clause built into it. However, the seller would accept an offer of $206. And then you're leaving the buyer and the buyer's agent to read between the lines that the next best offer was $205. But I would contend that the better strategy is to go back at $210 because the buyer has already preemptively told us that they would pay $210 for it. So that's the essence of an escalation clause. If you get one on one of your listings, or you have a buyer that's asking you about it because they heard from a friend's, coworker's, cousin that they did it that way, just let me know. Happy to help you talk through it with your clients. And if you receive one, happy to help you strategize on what to do there. If you have any questions about escalation clauses or anything else, give me a shout. Take care, guys.